I was 17 that summer. My mom had just gotten remarried to this guy named Steve, and they decided we needed a fresh start. So we left Portland and moved out to this small-ass town called Ash Creek, Oregon. Middle of nowhere. Probably less than the number of people in a Walmart on a Saturday night. Steve had found this old Victorian house on the edge of town. 3 stories, creaky floors, and this wraparound porch that looked cool in pictures but screamed haunted the second you stepped onto it. I hated it. The place had been empty for almost 20 years. We were told it used to be some kind of boarding house back in the 50s, then a private residence, and then nothing. It just sat there, rotting quietly. At first, it was just little things. I'd hear footsteps upstairs when I was the only one home. Lights flickered. The usual old house stuff. I didn't think much of it. But then the dreams started. Every night, I'd wake up around 3:15 a.m. No sound, no movement, just this intense feeling that someone was standing in the corner of my room, not near me, just watching. One night, I got brave or dumb and clicked on my flashlight. There was nothing there. But the weirdest part, my closet door would always be open. I closed it every night before bed. Every morning, wide open. A few days later, I found a trapdoor in the ceiling of the hallway. It led to the attic. No ladder, just a hook. Steve was out of town for work and Mom was sleeping, so I grabbed a chair and opened it. The air that came out was freezing cold in the middle of July. I climbed up. The attic was dark, dusty, smelled like mold and old wood. But in the far corner, there was this old rocking chair, just sitting there, facing the wall. Next to it, a pile of children's shoes, all different sizes, all old as hell. I noped the hell out of there. A week later, my mom started acting off. She'd stare at her reflection in the hallway mirror for way too long. Like 15 to 20 minutes, just staring. Sometimes smiling to herself. One night I asked, "Mom, you okay?" She turned to me, and this is gonna sound insane, but for a split second, her reflection didn't move with her. Like her body turned toward me, but the reflection just stayed there, still staring. I swear to God, I backed away like I'd seen a ghost. She laughed and said I was being dramatic, but she never stopped doing it. Steve came back 2 weeks later. First night back, he asked if we had a raccoon problem. I asked why. He pulled up his shirt and showed these scratches across his back, deep ones, like fingernails. We checked the house, but all the doors and windows were locked, no sign of any animal. Then it happened again and again. One night, I caught him screaming in the bathroom, slamming the door shut, saying something was in the mirror. That was the last straw. He checked into a hotel and never came back. The final night we spent in that house was the worst. I woke up to the sound like whispering, but not just one voice, dozens, maybe hundreds, all whispering at once. I couldn't make out what they were saying, but it was coming from the walls. The hallway lights were out, but the mirror, that hallway mirror, it was glowing. No joke. Pale bluish light pulsing like a heartbeat. I walked up to it, and I swear, I saw my mom inside the reflection, but she wasn't moving. She was just floating, eyes wide open, blood coming out of her mouth. Then the mirror cracked. I screamed. That's when Mom ran out of her room and grabbed me. I told her what I saw. She didn't argue. She didn't say I was being dramatic. She just nodded and said, "We're leaving, right now." We drove straight to a Motel 6 and never went back. We found out later from a guy at the local diner that the house used to be owned by a woman who ran an orphanage illegally out of the attic in the 1940s. She was apparently abusive, cruel. Some kids went missing. Locals say she went crazy and slit her own throat in front of the hallway mirror. They say she never left. That was 16 years ago. I still can't look at a mirror in the dark. When you work as a traveling nurse, you end up staying in a lot of weird places, small towns, old motels, sketchy Airbnb rentals with no working smoke detectors and decor straight out in 1973. But nothing screwed me up like that month in Black Hollow, West Virginia. I was assigned to a rehab center just outside town. It was an emergency placement. One of their nurses had quit out of nowhere, so I packed a bag, loaded up my Toyota, and drove 5 hours straight into a foggy little town that looked like it hadn't seen sunlight since Clinton was president. The rehab center had no housing for temps, so they booked me a room at this rundown roadside place called the Hollow Inn. The place had like 12 rooms, dusty lobby, old vending machine humming in the corner, and a front desk guy who looked like he hadn't blinked in 3 days. He gave me a room key, room 103, and said, "Don't open the window at night. The locks don't hold right." Weird warning, but okay. Room 103 smelled like bleach and cigarette smoke. Bed was stiff, carpet stained, but whatever. I was tired and just needed a place to crash between 12-hour shifts. First couple nights, nothing too wild. Weird creaking from the walls, the occasional thump above me even though I was on the ground floor. I figured it was old pipes or maybe raccoons on the roof. But on night 4, everything changed. It was around 1:30 a.m. I was half asleep, scrolling on my phone, when I heard a knock on the window. 3 taps. I froze. The curtain was closed, and I remembered what the front desk guy said. "Don't open the window." I tried to ignore it. Maybe a tree branch? Then it happened again. 3 taps. Slow. Deliberate. I peeked out from behind the curtain. There was a woman standing outside. Mid-30s, long black hair, pale as hell. She was barefoot, in October, and just standing there, staring straight at the window. I said, "Are you okay?" She didn't respond, just stood there for a few seconds more, then walked away into the dark. I barely slept that night. The next day at work, I asked around if any patients had wandered off recently. Nobody matching that woman's description. Back in my room that night, I was on edge. I triple locked the door and pushed the nightstand in front of it just in case. Fell asleep with the TV on low. Around 2 a.m., the room phone rang, not my cell. The actual landline on the bedside table. I picked it up groggily. No one spoke. Just breathing, then a whisper, "Let me in." I slammed the phone down so hard I thought I cracked the receiver. That morning I packed my bags and went to the front desk. Told the guy I wanted a different room or I was leaving. He just stared at me, deadpan. Then said, "You're staying in 103? I nodded. He leaned in, lowered his voice. "There's a reason we don't rent that room much anymore. You should have told me sooner." I asked him what he meant. He said, "A girl died in there, back in 2007. Her name was Lydia. They say her boyfriend locked her in and left. She tried to escape through the window. Didn't make it." Then he added, "If she knocked and you looked, she's marked you." That was it. I was done. But I didn't get far. My car wouldn't start. Battery dead, of course. I booked an Uber, but it got cancelled. No drivers nearby. I was stuck. So I spent one last night in room 103. I stayed up all night with the lights on, door blocked, phone unplugged. Then at 3 a.m., The window slid open on its own. I swear to God it was locked. And she stepped inside. Lydia. Same pale skin, same black hair. But this time, her eyes were bleeding. She didn't walk. She just floated, inches off the ground, toward me. I screamed and ran into the bathroom, slammed the door shut. She never touched me, never said a word. But I'll never forget what I saw when I finally opened the door at dawn. On the mirror, written in lipstick, "Thank you for letting me in." I quit that assignment 2 days later. Haven't taken a night shift since. And wherever I stay now, I never book room 103. I was 26 when I moved into that house on Calhoun Street. It was a historic duplex just outside downtown Charleston. Worn-out porch, creaky floors, that old southern charm people romanticize in magazines. It was the first place I ever rented on my own. And honestly, it felt like a steal. $1,200 a month for a full downstairs unit in that location? I signed the lease so fast I didn't even question it. I should have. The place had a weird smell when I moved in, like mildew mixed with something faintly burnt. I figured it was just age. It had character. At least that's what I told myself. The landlord was a short, twitchy guy named Eddie. Gave me the keys and said, "If anything feels off, just give it time." Weird advice, right? But I shrugged it off. I had work to focus on. And for the first few days, everything seemed fine. On the 5th night, I started hearing footsteps above me. But here's the thing, no one lived upstairs. Eddie told me the 2nd floor was vacant and being renovated. I figured maybe he had contractors coming early. But it was 2 o'clock in the morning. The walking wasn't fast. It was this slow, dragging kind of step. Across the floor, back again, sometimes stopping directly above my bed. Then one night, I went up to check. The door to the upstairs unit was locked, but the porch light outside the 2nd floor, it was on. And I swear, I saw a shadow move behind the curtains. The house had this tiny closet in the hallway, barely big enough to fit a mop. But every time I walked by, it would be slightly open, even after I shut it. One day I finally opened it all the way and found something stuck behind the water heater. A small, spiral notebook, water-damaged, torn cover. Inside, it was filled with messy, scribbled entries. "It watches me while I sleep. The upstairs is never empty. Don't talk to it. Don't answer. The mirror lies." The last page just said, "Run." That night, I was brushing my teeth when I noticed something wrong in the mirror. My reflection wasn't moving right. When I turned my head, it hesitated a second too long. Just a flicker, like a lag. I stared at it, trying to convince myself I was tired. Then my reflection smiled at me. I wasn't smiling. I dropped the toothbrush, backed out of the bathroom, and didn't sleep that night. The next morning, I knocked on the door across the street. A woman in her 60s answered. I asked if she knew anything about the house. She looked at me like I'd just confessed to murder. "You live in the Melrose house?" she said. "Yeah, just moved in," I replied. She sighed. "You know the last guy didn't make it, right?" My stomach dropped. "Didn't make it." She nodded. "Lived there about 2 months, said he was being followed. Started screaming at night. Told people the house had a double of him inside. They found him in the attic. Hung himself from the ceiling fan. That night I saw it. I was working late on my laptop, headphones on, when I looked up and saw someone standing in the hallway, just past the kitchen. I froze. He looked exactly like me. Same hoodie, same face, but his expression was blank, head tilted slightly. He didn't move, just watched. I turned to grab my phone, looked back, gone. No footsteps, no door sound, nothing. 2 nights later, I woke up to scratching. Not at the door, not the walls, inside the closet. I sat there, frozen, watching as the door slowly creaked open on its own. Inside, just darkness. And then, my own voice whispered, "You're already dead. You just haven't caught up yet." That was it. I packed a bag and got the hell out. I never went back. Eddie never returned my texts. My calls went straight to voicemail. A month later, the house was listed again on Zillow. No mention of the previous tenants, no warning. Just another charming southern home with historic appeal. And every once in a while, late at night, I wonder if the version of me that lived in that house ever left.